thanks for coming this afternoon. I'm very excited for Bill's show. And today he's going to talk to you about his etching, his process, how they relate to his painting, etc. So let's give a warm welcome to Bill.
Well, thanks for coming. If you can't hear me, you have to tell me because I won't know. I forgot to turn off I guess I started making etchings when I went to Philadelphia College of Art for Saturday classes when I was in high school. And I thought etching then was just to make a drawing that you reproduce. And I did what all teenagers do. I copied a record cover album of Arlo Guthrie and one of Joan Baez and did drawings, and then I made a couple of other things. And then I kind of put it away because it was too much work, and I hated. Yeah, you got all dirty with ink on your hands, and at school they, everybody like sulked on the ink and used way too much. And then I started, and I never wanted to make lithographs because my grandfather and great-grandfather were commercial lithographers, so I just didn't want anything to do with that because I don't know, I wanted my own identity. And when I went to the academy, I took etching with Morris Blackburn, who some of you might know. He was a really good teacher, but I thought an awful person. But I learned a lot from him. But I think I only did one print the whole year. And did litho, and I stayed away from, I did a litho, and then I stayed away from woodcut. I wasn't strong enough to do the litho with the stone and have to turn to grind the stone because you had this thing that weighed so much and it would just go flying. Mike can tell you more about litho, but it would just go flying off. And then there was a girl in my class who cut the tip of her finger off of putting the stone down on her hand, and everyone was like flipping out, and she said, "Keep your presence of mind." And took me to the hospital. So I never wanted to do lithos. And that like cemented it. And I was afraid I'd cut myself if I did woodcuts because I'm not too like physically adept. So and then my last year, I think Sarah McInerney and I did a silk screen together with Marty Zell, and I started in the beginning of the year and then went in the whole semester with. I think we worked together, and
studio nights.
Yeah, we share a studio. And whenever no one was in the silk screen room, we could work there. So I got up to 11 colors, and by then I knew how to could figure out how to make a print because you have to deconstruct the image. I hate that word because it was so big in the 80s and 70s. But, to take a picture apart and realize how to remake it. But then I forgot about printmaking, and I lost my studio about 15, 16 years ago, and Sarah and Stuart Chills and a couple of other people were making prints with Sarah McInerney, with Cindy Ettinger, and told me to go over there because I had nowhere to work. So I went over, and she was doing this 14-color etching by Neil Welliver. And just watching her, how it progressed, I learned a lot from looking. I learned more from watching than from reading. And so, this is boring, I'm sorry. So I started making etchings with Cindy, and this and this one were the very first one. And I was still sort of in this mindset of doing a drawing that you reproduce, I think. And I'd sit in my backyard with a little plate and draw into the plate. And this one I was really excited because I really wanted to get different types of lines because everyone, when I was a student, and you know how those voices stay on your shoulder for a while. Now they're pretty much gone, but it took years. And everyone always told me my paintings looked like they were all painted with the same brush, that it was the same brush and the same pressure and the same texture. So I was trying to get different types of texture. And I had old dental tools from some relative or someone who, they were beautiful, but I would never put them in my mouth, but they were great for drawing with, and then I tried a tweezers too, which I found really exciting to get little parallel lines. So, you know, it's like every time you do something, you feel like you invented the wheel, and then you realize, or fire or something, and then you realize that everyone else knows how to do it already. And then I had a show in 2008, I guess I got tired, whenever I made the etchings, I would go to Cindy's and we would put the plate in the acid, and the acid would etch the lines into the plate so she could print from it. And she does all the printing, I don't do any of it. But we'd go out to lunch and wait for the acid to eat into the plate. And it got really expensive to keep going out to lunch. I was just impatient. And I did a couple of things where by the time they were printed, I couldn't remember how we'd done them. So I went to Kitty City, and in the girls' toy department, there was this little Dremel you could buy that was electric that kids could engrave their name onto a bracelet. So I got that and I started using a Dremel, and that was exciting. And for me, but the first time, and then I got a real Black & Decker big boy Dremel. And the picture behind Mike there on the bottom, I did this aqua tint of my cat. I had 2 cats, and I did this etching of them with aqua tint, and I thought, I just need one little piece of black. So I thought, I'll use the Dremel. So I got the plate, and I hadn't tested the Dremel to see how it worked. And I put it down, and it was like being at the dentist when you have cavities, it just all over. And so it was no longer the cats. And I thought, well, how do I make this look like it was intentional? And I think the best thing I learned from making prints was that, you know, I sort of have an idea. I usually don't, but I sort of have an idea. But when the print comes off the plate, inked and printed, I always look and I always say, this isn't what I wanted. But then I learned, you know, you can wonder, why is this happening? But ultimately you realize this is happening. So this happened, so let's go from there. So I learned a lot that way. And then I wanted to work in color. So I got a grant, wonderfully, the only grant I ever got from Independence Foundation in 2004, I think. So Cindy and I worked on this print, which there's another version of it in the bin, but we spent a year on it. There were 7 plates, but we only printed 6 of them. And it started just sort of haphazardly. It started as a drawing, and then I kept adding to it. And it was still sort of having colors be separated. They weren't overlapping so much except for the green, and where the blue and yellow overlapped. And we worked on it for a year, like in between her Oliver print and Sarah's prints and other prints. And and by the end of the year, we printed 54 different versions of it in all different colors. And I'm amazed Cindy didn't try to kill me. Hello?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I can't work my technology. I'll leave it until I can.
Okay, no, it's all right. What was I saying? Yeah, we did 54 different versions of it. I'm amazed Cindy didn't just pick me out. And at the time, Sarah was doing this gorgeous, the most beautiful color etching of a woman in a shower. I think that was around the time. That was like, I think Mary Cassette's color prints are great, but this was as good as them. And so I learned a lot from that. And I also did a pink print at the same time as a fundraiser for someplace. But so at the end of the year, neither of us wanted to look at the print ever again because we really hated it and we exhausted it. And I still have most of them. But then about 5 years later, there was a student I had who really liked it. So we printed 2 different versions. Cindy and I printed 2 different versions of it. And I gave it to him for his birthday, so that's why it's called Birthday Flowers. The title came like 6 years later. But I didn't really show the prints, and I hoarded them because or Cindy told me I ordered them because I wanted to keep making them before I showed them. And I really wanted to do something like this eventually when I was ready. And when I got out of school, we were told not to show for 5 years. And I know Stuart Shills took it so religiously, he didn't show for 10. So I just wanted to, and I was way out of school by then, but I just wanted to make them and see what they were before. I didn't want them just to become something I could make money from or have as a commodity, or, you know, I really wanted to get into the prints and figure out what they were to me. But when I started working in color, I realized I needed to know, and when I paint improvisationally, but in prints, if it was going to be color, I had to know where the color was going to be so that I knew where things overlapped. And it was just too much work to, the Dremel had a head that you could scrape off, like with, there was a rotating copper brush that would take off etched lines, and I did that with one of them. I can't remember what it was, and I took it into Cindy. I was so proud. She looked at it and said, "Oh my God, you look like carpal tunnel syndrome." But she didn't know about the black and decker thing. So, and then in 2008, I was invited to have a show at the Print Center, and I panicked like everybody usually does before they have a show, and they think, I want all new work. So I did this picture and the one behind the lady in the striped shirt, sailor shirt, cut with the blue and the green and black, called Valentine. And they were, because we didn't have time to really work the place, because to make an etching, for me, it takes a couple of months. It can take up to a year, actually, to do one with a lot of colors, to get all the plates and work into Cindy's schedule and keep presence of mind to make it work. So I got plexi down on 2nd Street, plexiglass cut, and I started one, and the plexi I found was really easy because you could just hold them all up together and see where things overlapped or didn't overlap, and I thought, wow, this is like nirvana. And I used the Dremel, which made really deep marks, like kind of like wedding invitation ink, printed where the ink comes up off the page. And but the downside of that was that the plexi wears down, and you can only print like 5 or 6, and the image just disappears. So, so I had this show, and it was really wonderful. And the art museum here bought one of them, which was the one that Kelly's looking at by the program, called Larry's Garden Winter, which was based on a painting that's pink, blue, green, and red. But the print came out completely differently, because after making the plates with the mindset that they would be those colors, I reworked the yellow plate, and I thought, oh, this would look great printed black. So we printed it black, and I thought, oh, well, if the yellow plate's black, what color is the black plate? So it would all get mixed up, and I think I was, you know, and then I wanted to, and then I had, and it was nice to get the affirmation of people liking the work, and I had a show in London in 2010, and the British Museum got a couple of the prints, including that one and 2 that are in the bin, and that was sort of like, I wish my parents were alive so I could call them and tell them. And after that, I made a couple more black and whites. The one behind Sean is called A Landscape of Bow Ties for E.J. O'Hara, who was a student at Papa, who was a lithography student, and he was about to make a litho based on Xeroxes he'd made of bow ties. He collected bow ties, and he had these black bow ties. So I said, you know, you should make a dry point. You'll get a much better, deeper, richer, more velvety black. Like a black you'll want to eat. I mean, it's a beautiful color, and he didn't want to do it. So I Xeroxed his Xeroxes, and I said, can I do it? So I did one. I did the first plate. It's like maybe 7 passes. And, but the first print, I just had the bow tie tied, and then the band that goes around one's neck going down. and that was this black. It's at the lower left of this print, scraped out, because Cindy printed it, and at the time she was working with Daniel Heyman, who, I don't know if any of you know his work, but he does all these naked men on the beach. At the time he was doing naked men on the beach in Provincetown, or naked men sitting around, and they were very phallic. And Cindy said to me, you know, I've printed a lot of really phallic imagery, but I think this is the most phallic. So, true to form, I went home and scraped it out, left the shadow, and then kept going. And then a couple of years later, I really liked the print, but there was something in it that bugged me, so I reworked it, and so that's the second version of it. And then I started looking at Mary Cassatt's prints, and I love the way her color is saturated throughout the rectangle of the print, and it's full up with color. So I started making color prints. There's this one, and one in the back hanging up between the last two windows. I printed it first in a couple of colors, and then did a sort of monochromatic version. And I love printing them in gray, although our gray is usually Cindy. There's one somewhere. There's one in gray, but Cindy I think got tired of. She would get to a point where she just couldn't work on a plate anymore, and I'd have to give her a year or something to take a pause with it, because I'm always, usually I print 15 or 20, but when I've done 25, I always worry about at number 18 she'll be really sick of it. And the numbers don't really mean anything. Everybody wants the lowest number, but often we print them and go through them, and then I start numbering them 1, 2, 3, and then I realize we're doing it backwards. So the last number is actually the one that was first, and I don't really care about that, but some people are really persnickety about it. And I don't know, does anybody have questions? Come on, yeah.
How many plates is this one?
That's, yeah, the catalog. Or it says it there. It's 4 or 5.
All plexi?
It's all plexi, yeah. It's 5. No, it's addition of 5. 5 colors, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I just forgot what I was going to say. We always we steel face the plates. I mean, part of what I learned from watching not Sarah, but some other people who worked with Cindy, and they wouldn't pay to steel face the copper, but she can't print off of copper or zinc, especially zinc, because the ink oxidizes. So yellow comes out kind of greenish gray, and blue comes out just this like that color. So we would get and you can't copper steel face zinc, so I use copper, and we steel face it so it comes out looking like the color of stainless steel. And with that, the color comes out really clearly. And when we were first proofing versions of this, we were trying to figure out a color, and I said, let's use cobalt blue. And it should be cerulean, I guess, here, but I said, let's just use cobalt blue. And Cindy just said, no, I hate cobalt blue. It's such a like icky, it doesn't do anything. So I said, no, have you ever done it with steel facing? And she said, no. So, and she's like the best person in the world to work with. I wish she were president. And she, so we printed it, and when we pulled it off, we were both like little kids. We're like, wow, that's such a beautiful color. So I started using that color a lot, and then I didn't want to use it at all because I knew how to use it, and I wanted to try to use a color I didn't know. And then with these on plexi, the color was even different. It was more like colored pencil, I think, because it didn't have any interaction with anything metallic. So these are the kinds of things that fascinate me, but I think most people aren't. I mean, someone I know wanted to go through every single print I have of one edition to see what the variations are, and I said, no, I'm not doing that. Because that's not what it's, I mean, they're all the same. close enough. So, any other questions?
Did
Yeah.
you use, for this big one here, what did you use for the plates? Was it plexiglass or?
Oh, no, those are the only two
Those are the only
plexi.
two, okay.
Because plexi wears down too fast, and it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of work to have something vanish. I've learned we proof the prints so many times before we steel face them that, although I'm getting better at this, but I used to always do the yellow plate first, but the yellow plate's the one that prints first, and when Cindy prints, when the paper it's still damp and it goes back on the next plate, and then the next plate in rapid succession in one printing session. So a lot of the ink from that first plate hitting the paper from the first plate will transfer to the other 3 or 4 plates in the course of printing. So that wears down the intensity of the yellow, but we print the yellow first because it's the easiest. It's best to keep that plate clean, and it's harder to clean the yellow. You know, if you have a black plate, if you don't clean it all, it's not going to show, but it will in the yellow. So
And what do you print next after yellow?
it varies, and that's been interesting for me with Cindy. Because in school I learned, I don't know how many of you made etchings in school, it depends on which color well, Cindy should be answering this, but which color ink has the most oil in it, because there's a lot of oil, it will repel the subsequent colors. And in school, I made etchings in school. When I started making etchings with Cindy, a lot of people would say to me, oh yeah, I made etchings in art school, I know all about it, or I've made my etchings, and you moron.